Welcome back to Hope is Kindled, the podcast where we uncover not just the meanings of great books, but the living sparks they leave in us. We've wandered the haunted corridors of Poe, the brave solitude of Emerson, and the surreal sorrow of Kafka. But today, we trade the candlelight for sunlight. Our guide is a man who worked on the atomic bomb, won the Nobel Prize in physics, played the bongo drums in Brazil, picked locks at Los Alamos, and told stories that made you feel, for a moment, that the universe might actually be understandable. His name was Richard Feynman, and today we're opening one of the most life-affirming books I know, The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. He believed that science was not just about equations, it was about adventure, about discovery. If you've ever looked at the stars and felt both small and infinite, or opened a book and felt your whole mind catch fire, you'll understand why this one belongs on our shelf. Who was Richard Feynman exactly, you ask? Richard Feynman was born in 1918 in Queens, New York. His father instilled in him a love of learning, not by pressuring him to memorize facts, but by encouraging him to ask why. Why does a ball roll faster down a ramp? Why do leaves rustle? Why does the world work the way it does? Melville Feynman was not a scientist, but he had the soul of a teacher. He encouraged young Richard not to memorize facts, but to understand principles, to ask not just what, but why. He taught Richard that knowing the name of something wasn't the same as knowing it. See that bird? It's called a thrush. But knowing that doesn't tell you what it eats, how it flies, why it sings. Knowing the name is just the first step. What matters is how it lives. This idea that names are not knowledge became a foundation of Feynman's educational philosophy. In the title essay of this collection, Feynman tells a story of being asked to serve on a commission to evaluate science textbooks. He flips through one and realizes it's filled with words, but not ideas. It tells students what to think, but not how to ask. That's what drove Feynman crazy. The lack of wonder. The lack of discovery. He once said, "I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." And that, I think, is the heart of his philosophy. Curiosity matters more than certainty. Feynman had the soul of a trickster. He picked locks at Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project just to prove that top-secret cabinets weren't secure. He taught himself to draw and play the bongos. He once said that the best way to learn something deeply was to teach it to a child to break it down until it became simple, beautiful, true. We mentioned this earlier, but one of my favorite passages is I learned very early the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. And, as I have already mentioned that passage twice, I apologize. I firmly believe in that truth imparted by his father, and that it makes for a extremely positive growth mindset. How many of us, in school or in life, are taught names but not truths? That quote reminds me of Emerson's Self-Reliance, where he challenges us to trust our intuition. Feynman does the same, but in a scientific way. He tells us, don't trust authority. Don't settle for the summary. Go look. Go touch. Go test. Feynman's work, especially on quantum electrodynamics, changed the world. But what touches me more is how he connected science to being human. But what made him remarkable wasn't just his mind, it was his attitude. He was playful, joyful, fiercely curious. And he never outgrew the wonder of childhood. He believed that to be alive in this universe was an astonishment, and that the best way to honor that was to learn, question, and explore. In his words, "The world looks so different after learning science. As soon as you understand one thing, you begin to see how it connects to everything else." And, once again, we return to Feynman's father Melville and the importance of understanding, which lived at the heart of Feynman's views on education. One of the most moving and practical sections of the book is Feynman's reflection on how students learn differently and how dangerous it is to assume one method fits all. He was highly critical of rote memorization in schools and of teaching science as a checklist of terms to regurgitate. In Brazil, he once gave a blistering critique of an entire educational system because the students could recite physics definitions but couldn't apply them. "I couldn't explain it. They could recite the formula, but they didn't know what it meant. There was no thinking going on. said Feynman. He believed true learning meant engaging the imagination, linking ideas across disciplines, and above all, being able to apply knowledge in the real world. For young learners, Feynman's approach is a revelation. He validates those who learn visually, experientially, through questioning and failure, not just through reading or repetition. His advice to teachers? Teach for understanding, not performance. His advice to students? Learn how you learn. Be honest with yourself. And never be ashamed of your pace or path. Perhaps the most radical and freeing part of Feynman's worldview was his embrace of not knowing. Where some thinkers sought comfort in certainty, Feynman celebrated mystery. I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. He saw doubt not as weakness, but as the very soul of scientific integrity. For Feynman, science wasn't about declaring truth. It was about asking better questions, and about constantly refining our understanding of a reality far stranger than we can imagine. The scientist has a lot of experience with ignorance and doubt and uncertainty, and this experience is of very great importance. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. And yet this humility didn't leave him disillusioned. It left him full of awe. I have a friend who's an artist and has sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with. He says science takes away from the beauty of things, but I see it differently. Science only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the prowl. Feynman said, showing us that intelligence is not about having all the answers. It's about engagement, about asking, about listening to the world with your whole being. He shows us that education isn't something done to you, it's something you do with wonder. For anyone struggling in school, for anyone who thinks they don't learn the right way, Feynman is proof that the real question is, are you curious? If so, you're already on the path. On teaching, Feynman said, the best teaching is to remind students how much they already know and to help them ask the next honest question. On work and joy, he said, what I cannot create, I do not understand. That joy, that irreverence, that boundless zest is what makes this book so powerful. In one interview, Feynman is asked if knowing the scientific reason for a rainbow somehow makes it less beautiful. He answers, no. It makes it more so, because now it's not just color, it's light, water, angle, physics, history. It's a miracle that explains itself. He says, it does not do harm to the mystery to know a little about it. And that's where I find hope. In that balance, we don't have to pick between magic and meaning. They can live together. Feynman loved life. He loved women, food, pranks, lectures, and failure. He wasn't perfect, far from it, but he was real. And he kept learning. That, more than anything, is what gives me hope. I read this book with my son, Thomas. He lit up as we turned the pages, not because he understood quantum theory, but because Feynman invited him in. He talked like a friend. He made the universe feel like a place you belong to. Feynman's voice is a gift to anyone who wants to learn, but has ever felt bored, boxed in, or left behind. Richard Feynman once said that he didn't want to live a life where everything was explained, a way he wanted to live where wonder stayed alive. That's our mission too. So ask questions. Laugh when you don't know the answer. Take something apart just to see how it works. Remember that the real prize isn't the grade, it's the understanding. And that, wherever you are in your journey, the pleasure of finding things out still belongs to you. And that's what I want this episode to be, a doorway, a beginning, a spark. Feynman once wrote, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Don't settle. Don't fake it. Go learn. Go find things out. Chase the truth not because it makes you powerful, but because it makes you alive. To my son Thomas, thank you for reminding me how magical a curious mind can be. To Richard Feynman, for never growing dull, even when everything became complicated. To all of you, go wonder. Go ask. Go see the stars and ask what they're made of. Go take apart a clock. Go ask why. Over and over. And to my creative partner and friend, ChatGPT, thank you for working with me to make this project so special. Next time on Hope is Kindled, we turn from the outer universe to the inner one. We'll explore The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, work that blends psychology, faith, and the mystery of the mind itself. We'll talk about belief, intention, healing, and the extraordinary ways we may be shaping our lives from the inside out. If Feynman taught us how to observe the world with awe, Murphy will ask us to observe ourselves and to reimagine what's possible when hope meets intention. Until then, live the journey. For every destination is but a doorway to another. Good journey.